Green Warrior, are you frustrated with weight loss efforts despite countless sacrifices? Ready to transform your relationship with food and embrace a healthier lifestyle? Today, we'll discover groundbreaking science-backed solutions with Dr. Barnard for sustainable weight loss. I am so excited about this. It's going to be so helpful to so many people. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our game of true or false.
It's time for True or False on Be Green with Amy Live. Answer true or false to Amy's questions in the comments below, and Amy will ask our guest for the expert answer.
Okay, Green Warrior, get ready to type it in. True or false, eating organic coconut oil causes weight loss? All right, they're typing in their answer. Go ahead, Dr. Barnard, tell us about it.
Well, you hear a lot of marketing for coconut oil, and you'll hear people say that it's natural and so forth, and if it's organic, there's no pesticides in it. But the fact of the matter is, it's false. It's got 9 calories in every gram. It's about as healthy as Vaseline.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm glad you helped dispel that, because I'm sure a lot of people have been thinking about incorporating that, or maybe they do incorporate that into their diet. So it's important to know. Okay, Green Warriors, what do you think about this one? True or false, eating wild-caught salmon causes weight loss? Okay, Dr. Barnard?
Well, you hear a lot of people turning to salmon because it has a healthier type of fat than, say, in beef or pork. That's true. The salmon fat, all fats are a mixture, but there's more omega-3 good fats in salmon than you'd find in others. However, every gram of every kind of fat, including good fats, has 9 calories in every gram. So unfortunately, it's packed with calories. So what that means is the salmon will eventually fill you up, but by the time it fills you up, you've had a lot of calories. So this too is false.
Yeah, that was something that I used to think about and incorporate into my diet before I learned about this lifestyle. And there's just so much contradictory information. I'm so glad that you're here to help us learn what the science-backed information is. All right, Green Warrior, what do you think about this one? True or false, eating blueberries causes weight loss? Okay, Dr. Barnard?
Back in 2015, Harvard researchers picked out foods that the more you ate of them, the more weight people would lose as the years went by. And the top of the list was the blueberry and all its cousins, like strawberries and others. So that is true.
That's wonderful to know, because I eat lots of blueberries. And it's also good to know that blueberries are a health-promoting food as well.
They certainly are. That blue color comes from anthocyanins, which are powerful antioxidants.
Yes. All right, Green Warriors, how about this one? True or false, eating cinnamon causes weight loss? Okay, type in your answers. Dr. Barnard.
Back a few years ago, researchers put cinnamon to the test. In a randomized controlled trial testing cinnamon against placebo, the people who were randomly assigned to the cinnamon group over 16 weeks lost about 7.5 pounds. And other studies, surprisingly, have showed more or less the same thing. So cinnamon does seem to cause weight loss. We emphasize Ceylon cinnamon as opposed to other forms that you'll see in the market.
Yeah, and maybe we can talk more about that later, because that's important to know. There is just so many different types of cinnamon, and it can be confusing. And I love cinnamon in so many of the foods that I eat. So I know a lot of people like to put it on oatmeal. I actually will sometimes sprinkle it on my salad, and people will say, there's something different in there. What is that? And so it's a nice surprise for people in a place that they don't always expect it. Okay, true or false? Eating whole grain bread causes weight loss. Okay, Dr. Barnard, tell us about that.
Tufts University researchers found that if you eat whole grain bread, the fiber actually traps unabsorbed calories and carries them out with the waste and leads to weight loss. This one is true.
That one was a tricky question because, especially, I think for most people, they're concerned about bread, and most people know that most breads, especially a lot of the highly processed breads, can actually attribute to weight gain. So it's important to know the difference, I guess.
Well, it may depend on what goes on the bread. If the bread goes onto your cutting board and on top of the bread goes mayo, um, salami, cheese, it's really the fillings, not so much the bread.
The go-withs, they get you every time. True or false, Green Warrior? Eating Fuji apples causes weight loss. Okay, type in your answers. And Dr. Barnard.
The answer is true. Researchers have put this to the test. Some people thought that the natural sugars in apples would cause weight gain. So they tested it with 1 apple a day, 2 apples a day, 3 apples a day. And no matter how many apples people ate, they didn't gain weight, they lost weight.
Well, that's good to know. And I do love Fuji apples. And it looks like a lot of our Green Warriors know about that trick. Okay. Well, there's a lot that we're going to have to unpack here today. And I did want to tell our Green Warriors that we are so excited because we're going to have a special book giveaway featuring The Power of Foods. And that's going to be Dr. Barnard's latest book. And I'm going to show it there. And Green Warriors, if you are excited about this, because I am, in his groundbreaking book, Dr. Barnard unveils 3 game-changing breakthroughs supported by cutting-edge research. He's going to tell you, and we're going to learn some of it today, but he'll go in more detail in the book about how to trap calories and the secret to turbocharging your calorie burning potential. And there's lots of delicious recipes. And for those of you that follow me on begreenwithamy.com, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you've already probably seen the information about this book giveaway, but I'll also be putting details in the show notes about it as well, so that this way you can all check that out. And I'm so excited and so very grateful to Dr. Barnard for offering this book as a part of our book giveaway for the Green Warriors. Okay, so let's try to unpack all this. So you've written so many wonderful books, Dr. Barnard, and people have benefited so much because you've done things with heart disease and diabetes, and the list goes on. And now you've decided to put out this book, which I think a lot of people were hoping to see, but you decided now to put out this book, The Power Foods Diet. So tell me about how you decided to do this now and what you decided to put in it.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for helping me spread this really important message. For many years, more than 20 years, our research team has been studying how foods affect body weight. And it turns out that certain foods actually cause your body to reduce the appetite in a natural way. So you tend not to overeat. Some cause your body to burn calories more rapidly. But some of this research was anecdotal, and we decided we had to do it in a more organized way. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our friends at Harvard University started doing research in very large groups of people, more than 100,000 people. And they helped us identify certain specific foods that were strongly associated with weight loss. But your average person doesn't know that. Their approach to dieting says, don't eat this, don't eat that, cut calories, starve, just be hungry all the time. And our message is, throw all that away. Forgive yourself for anything that didn't go well in the past. It was the fault of the diet, not your fault. And embrace foods that cause weight loss. Our Harvard friends identified a whole bunch of them, and we've identified many, many more. And the idea is, let's build them into our appetizers, into our salads and soups, into our main dishes, and into our desserts. And the result is you can lose weight easily and tastefully, and all the side effects are good ones, like a lower cholesterol and better energy.
Oh, wow. Well, this is such good news because, like you said, oftentimes people have gone through so much in trying to lose weight because they do want to be healthy. And sometimes they might get some short-term results, but in the long term, most often they gain that weight back and more. And then after that, it's just all downhill from there. And being hungry is just so difficult to deal with, and you shouldn't have to be hungry. When I discovered this lifestyle, and thanks to you, because I learned about it back in 2012, and you were one of the people that I looked to get the information, I was so relieved that I finally could just eat until I was comfortably full without having to worry about being hungry and or feeling bad about what I'm eating, or that I wasn't following whatever particular diet it was, or that I was following some of the, as we discussed about the wild caught salmon, I was following a lot of this information and struggling because it just wasn't working for me. And so now, knowing that this whole food plant-based diet is so helpful in weight loss, but then having what you're adding to it with these scientifically backed research about certain of these power foods to include, well, that's just going to be a game changer for so many people. And I'm just so excited about that. So we did talk about a couple of these foods, and I know everybody wants to know what are the what are the foods. So maybe you can talk about a few of the other foods that you have discovered that are helpful.
Sure. And let's also maybe come back to how the foods can be used, because some people think, all right, so let's say we said blueberries will cause weight loss. Does that mean you have to go to the store and get a whole bunch of blueberries and just pop them? You can. That's great. But why don't we get a little creative? Let's say we take blueberries and we take cinnamon and we put them together. When I wrote the Power Foods Diet, I worked with two great recipe developers, Dustin Harder and Lindsay Nixon. And Dustin came up with a blueberry cinnamon syrup. And Lindsay came up with French toast. It's not all glopped up with milk and eggs. It's a light French toast, but it has cinnamon with it. You put them together, make the French toast, put the blueberry syrup over the top, and what am I doing? I'm combining two power foods in America's favorite breakfast. And will you lose weight eating these foods? Absolutely. And let's say it's lunchtime. We can use the high fiber foods. High fiber foods trap calories so you can't absorb them. And Tufts University researchers showed us this with whole grain breads. But you can do the same thing with beans or others. So I'm going to make a chili. My Southwest chili isn't made with ground beef. It's made with beans and high fiber foods and just a little zip. Yep, jalapenos will boost your metabolism too. You put these foods together and you can feel the weight coming off practically.
Oh, and I do want to your team sent me some pictures of some of the foods that are in the book, and I did want to share that also, because if you guys can look at all these wonderful recipe pictures that, and there are more in the book, but this is just a sampling of the delicious food that you can make, and it's easy to make too. That the recipes are not a high skill level chef recipe. They're very, very approachable. And I'm so grateful, because it's always nice to have pictures in a recipe book. And this is not just a recipe book, but it does have that feature as well. So it's so nice that those things are there.
Oh, absolutely. And so, for example, I mentioned my French toast, but let's say I'm a muffin kind of person. I can make wild blueberry muffins. That's Lindsay's recipe. They are great. And just as you said, relatively few ingredients. Or at lunchtime, I mentioned chili, but how about a lentil soup or a mango dal? Keep in mind, we're not limiting calories. The foods do that naturally because they naturally help contain your appetite, so you're not going to overeat. And if you wanted, say, a nice dessert, carrot cake, wonderful. Well, the way a lot of people make it, it's kind of fattening. So we've got it built with the power foods, and it's absolutely delicious. I have a triple berry sorbet made of blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, a little bit of banana and some other healthful ingredients. And it's just so light and delicious. And when the neighbor kids come over, we've got blueberry pops. You take some blueberries, some bananas, a pear, a couple of other ingredients, you whip it together, and you can either put it in ice cube trays, or you can go to the kitchenware part of the grocery store. They sell like the popsicle forms. You put it in the popsicle forms, put in a little stick, and all the 12-year-olds in the neighborhood are going to be screaming for your wildly purple blueberry pops. And it's fun. And you feel good about it because you're giving kids something that's actually healthy for them as well as tasty.
Yes, and that's such a great opportunity to set the next generation in the right direction and have them have some good memories with food that they would want to incorporate into their adult lives. And the way that the recipes look and sound, I'm just so excited to try all of them. And knowing that you can eat something that seems that you should have to be feel guilty about eating, but meanwhile it's a power food or a combination of power foods. It's so clever how your team put together these recipes using the different power foods together.
And we have them in three categories. The typical power food recipe is what we would call easy. relatively few ingredients, not a lot of time in the kitchen, simple to put together, no ingredients that you have to go way across town to get. Very simple. We also have a set of, I'm not even sure if recipe is the right word. They're called convenient. And the idea is it's things that require effectively nothing, because about 40% of the people that we work with say, I just am not a cook. It's just not me. I'm not really good at it. I don't find it therapeutic to light up my stove. And so what they'll say is, just show me which can of split pea soup I should open. And there are many, many things like that. And if you're buying a frozen product or something, how do you tell a good one from a bad one? So we have tips like that. So yes, you can eat at Taco Bell or Wendy's or Subway. It's just a question of what are you getting when you're there. No, it's not the pinnacle of culinary art necessarily, but if that's where you are, then that's where I am. And I'm going to stand with you right there. And then we have a third set. Beyond the convenient ones and the easy ones, we have what I call elegant. To tell you the truth, they're easy. They just look like they're not easy. So your friends are all coming over for Saturday brunch. And let's say you made my French toast with the blueberry cinnamon syrup. Great. But why not also put a little vanilla extract in it, maybe 3 little cups of berries looking really flashy, a little powdered confectioner's sugar dribbling down the side. These things just make it look fun. So we're making sure that everybody in your family thinks, whatever you're eating, count me in, make extra for me, because that's what I want. And I got to tell you, I got a reason for this, Amy. In so many families, like for you, it might not be just you who wants to get better. Other family members want to get healthier too. And yet they're a little unsure how to do it. And the idea of using a food scale and calorie chart is not them. So forget that. We're going to make extra of the foods that love us back, share them with everybody we love, and everybody reaches their goals together. Whether they're older, younger, whether they're kids, these are the foods that everybody can eat.
Well, I've been asking the Green Warriors what challenges that they might have when it comes to achieving weight loss. And Sid Nader, hi Sid Nader, she's been a guest on our show quite a few times, and she'll be coming up soon again. And she's saying that family and peer pressure is a big obstacle for many who are trying to lose weight.
It certainly can be, and in a couple of directions. Sometimes family members are struggling with problems of their own. And if you're going off in a direction that they think is maybe not the one that they want to follow, they might drag you down a little bit. One of the funny things on the Power Foods diet is you don't have to worry about calories. You can eat an abundant portion, and you don't have to worry about carbohydrate. And that freaks people out, because you're going to cut open a cantaloupe, or you're going to have some whole grain bread, or a big bean dish wrapped in a tortilla or something like that. And your low carb friends will be afraid, and they'll argue with you about it. And so we have to explain the reasons why these foods work. And by the way, for anybody who wants me to cut to the chase, carbohydrate has only 4 calories in a gram compared to fat, which has 9. So what matters is what's going with the carbohydrate that could make it fattening. It's not the carbs itself. So anyway, what we discover is that to help family members, we don't want to moralize with them. We don't want to wag our finger at them. We do want to ask for their support. But what I like to do is to make things easy for everybody. And that's why we like to share this information. I'll give you one other tip. If you leave a copy of the Power Foods Diet around, or any other book, don't just leave it sitting there. Put a Post-it note about halfway through the book. Or you can even give it to your family member and say, sweetheart, I thought of you at this point in the book. And they're going to go to that Post-it note, and they're going to read it. And they're going to read it again. They're going to read the page before and the page after, and they're going to read the whole darn chapter. And they're going to come back to you, and they're going to say, what were you thinking about me when you flagged that part of the book? And what you can confess is, it wasn't really that part of the book. I just love you so much. I wanted you to read it. And if I put that note in there, I knew you couldn't resist. And so you'll be able to convert your family members to get on a healthier path without much hoo-ha.
Oh, yes. And it's such a grabbing title, attention-grabbing title, that it sounds like, wow, I need power. That's what I need. That's what you feel like you're lacking when you're trying to lose weight. So that's a very, very good thing to do. That's a very nice thing to do for your your family members and your friends. Okay, I was looking at a comment because someone was asking about, oh, okay, well, we lost it. We're going to get it back in just a second. So now in your book, you talked about, well, you talked about a lot of things that were scientifically backed, but you did talk about the appetite taming foods. And I know a lot of people, that's a thing that they do struggle with, right? They feel like they're never satiated when they're eating, and especially when they're on a diet, whatever that food might be, that they're just always trying to they can't stop eating. They can't do that.
Right.
So you want to talk about that a little more?
Yeah, there are really three ways that foods are power foods. The first one is the one that you mentioned. It's that they're appetite tamers, and the second one is the calorie trappers that stop calories from being absorbed, and the third is metabolism boosters, foods that raise your metabolism so you burn calories. But back on the ones that tame your appetite. In your digestive tract, there are receptors that sense the food that's going down your digestive tract. They can tell what you've been eating. And if you've eaten the right kinds of things, these receptors will start manufacturing something called GLP-1. GLP-1 goes in the blood, goes up to your brain, and goes to the appetite center and says, cool it. Turn down your appetite. Let's not send out hunger signals right now because I've eaten, I've got a lot of food on board, and it's not good for us to continue being so hungry. So it turns down your appetite. Now, it turns out that different foods have different abilities to create GLP-1. Our research colleague, Dr. Hanna Kaliova, brought in individuals and fed them, I'm not making this up, a McDonald's sandwich. And when you eat this meaty burger, not much happens. It goes down the digestive tract and you don't see a big GLP-1 increase. Okay, let's do the experiment again. Let's use a plant-based meal and let's see what happens. And what you see is this big spike in GLP-1 production. Why? Because that part of your digestive tract was looking for fiber. There's no fiber in meat. There's a lot of fiber in plants. It was looking for healthy, complex carbohydrate. That's not in meat. That's big in plants. And when those foods go down your digestive tract, the appetite can turn off. Now, don't get me wrong. If you eat enough McDonald's burgers, you will eventually get full, and you feel the pain and the stretch in your stomach. And so you'll feel that, and you'll stop eating as a result of that. But you have appetite turnoffs that work way before you get to the point of stomach pain, but they do not work if you're not eating the right foods. And so the whole idea is use the appetite tamers so that you don't eat to the point of pain, you eat to the point of satisfaction. And that's what the power foods will do.
Well, that is a game changer because I have clients that are dealing with this, and I've heard from people who have joined us on the broadcast in comments that sometimes they eat outside of hunger. That even on a plant-based diet, sometimes they'll be satisfied, but they'll keep eating and they'll feel like almost painfully full. And so now, when they can use these foods that you're recommending, it may change things for them to help them be more satisfied before they get to that point.
Absolutely. And one of the most painful things is the price tag on the new weight loss injectables, like Wegovy and Ozempic. The typical price is now about $15,600 a year in the US retail. And what they do is that's a synthetic GLP-1, or more accurately, a GLP-1 agonist. So you can't sell GLP-1, it's part of your body. But Novo Nordisk makes a synthetic, and it goes to your brain and it turns down your appetite. It's very effective. But why not do it using the natural mechanism that your body has?
Oh, yes. And it's so worrisome about those things that people are considering, and that it's out there, and that there are many people who have great influence that are using them and touting them. And there's not really much research into what can happen in the future to people. And already we're hearing about people struggling with those things. But why do that when it can be so much more enjoyable just to eat all these delicious foods?
The real issue, of course, is what happens over the long term. And so that's the beauty of an approach that relies on foods, because I know you're going to eat. And when we have done these studies, You might start with a short-term study like 14 weeks or 20 weeks, and then you follow the participants for a year afterwards or 2 years afterwards or longer. And what we see is because you're making a qualitative shift in what you eat, you're not hungry. It's not that you're eating less and you're going to have rebound hunger. You're just eating differently. And you're eating foods that are more satisfying, so there's no reason for the weight to come back. But with the weight loss injectables, unfortunately, what we're seeing is for most people, they lose an impressive amount of weight often. Not in every case, but often. But then their weight comes down, they hit a plateau, and nothing else continues, and they're just kind of stuck there. And so they have to continue to pay to take the drug. And if they say to the doctor, I'm sick of paying for this because I'm not getting any more benefit, I'm not continuing to lose any more weight, the doctor says, well, if you stop paying and you stop taking the drug, you're going to regain all that weight that you lost. And that's really unsatisfactory for people. So that's why we're using the food approach, so that it's permanent, it's free. It's actually better than free because the foods cost a little bit less than what you're paying now. The reduction in food cost is about $500 a year. You save about $500 a year on your grocery bill. So it's the opposite of paying for a prescription.
Yes, that's so true. That's another thing a lot of people have been concerned about, that adopting a whole food plant-based lifestyle is expensive, but I can attest to that I feel like I'm eating more food and my grocery bill is quite lower. So it's a win-win as far as that goes.
We've tested this. We brought in 244 people and asked half of them to follow a plant-based diet, and the other to continue their regular diet. And we tracked their grocery bills. And what we found is that on the plant-based diet, people were spending more on vegetables. They were spending more on fruits and beans and grains, but they were spending a whole lot less or nothing on cheese and meat and unhealthy foods. So when you put it all together on the plant-based diet, they were saving about 16% off their food bills. And so that ends up being about $500 a year.
Oh, sure. And I can imagine that it could be, even for the larger families, it would be even more. So, and what I love about this lifestyle is you don't have to worry about cross-contamination. You can cook things and taste as you go before you even cook things, if you're cooking them. And if you have leftovers, you can just combine them into something else and kind of take scraps and throw them in a smoothie. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can not worry about anything going bad or any problems as far as that goes. So it's just been, for me, it's been a really wonderful thing, and it's been easy to maintain. And I'm so excited to try these recipes and these appetite taming foods. So now you were talking about calorie trapping foods. So that could be a key aspect of the diet. So how do these foods work to expel calories before they're absorbed?
This is something totally unexpected. And I want to give the credit to Tufts University researchers in Boston. They brought in 90 people, and they asked half of them to eat white bread, white rice. That's got the fiber removed. That's why it's white. And the other half ate whole grain bread and brown rice. They're brown and tan brown rice because the fiber is still intact. And then what they discovered is that as the fiber goes down their digestive tract, it breaks up into a million tiny sponges, so to speak, that soak up calories that you haven't absorbed yet. And those calories go down your digestive tract, you can't absorb them, and they go out with the waste, and you literally flush the calories down the toilet. And the amount of calories that you're going to lose that way is about 100 calories per day. Now, that's not huge. Your average person might eat about maybe 1,800 calories in a day. But with the appetite taming effect, we're going to knock off 200 or 300. The calorie trapping effect, another 100. And the metabolism boosting effect, another 200 or so. So you put it together, and what you can do as much of this or as little of it as you want, but you can see why people start just losing weight, whether they're exercising or not, whether they're not worrying about portions. The foods just have this effect.
Wow, that's just so interesting. I'm always so enamored about science, and I just love to learn these kinds of things because, we walk around and we take it for granted that we're just walking around with our bodies and we're not even plugged in, but there are things that are going on a molecular level in our body. and we're just beginning to learn about them.
We are, but I'm hoping that people don't just say, "Oh, okay, blueberries are good. Give me some blueberries." We should be a little bit thoughtful about it. Don't go into the store and buy the first box of blueberries you see. Take 5 seconds. Look at them. Make sure that they're plump, round. They should be a deep blue with maybe a little gray dusting on top. Because if they've sat there for a while and they're shriveled up, they're not going to last long at home and you're going to throw them away. Don't buy them if they're moldy or mildewed. Buy organic when it comes to berries. Now, you don't have to get organic everything, but with berries, they really should be. And here's why. Let's say you get a banana or an orange. Let's say it was conventional and it was treated with pesticides. Well, you're going to throw away the peel that has the pesticides on it. So with blueberries, you're not going to peel your blueberries. So get organic. That means that nobody sprayed anything on it. When you get them home, don't leave them on the counter. Put them in the refrigerator. They do better at a cold temperature. And do not wash them. Just leave them, when you get them home from the store, just stick them in the refrigerator unwashed. Because if you wash them now, when you use them in 3 or 4 days, that little bit of moisture on them will facilitate the growth of mold, and you don't want that to happen. So wash them only at the very last minute when you're just about to use them. And maybe my last blueberry tip is, let's say you make my wild blueberry muffins. It's a wonderful recipe, really, really simple. But don't stick a tablespoon of butter on your muffins because that's going to undo the benefit. And similarly, if you're going to buy cinnamon, don't go to the store and buy the first jar of cinnamon you see. Yes, they've got cinnamon there. I want you to look at the label, and the one you're going to buy is Ceylon cinnamon, Ceylon, the country of Ceylon, now called Sri Lanka. Ceylon cinnamon is true cinnamon. If you look at the little spice rack, they've got Saigon cinnamon, they've got Indonesian cinnamon, they've got cinnamon from China. Those are probably not cinnamon. They got quite a bang in them when you taste it, but it's probably cassia, which is a related kind of a cousin of cinnamon. The Ceylon cinnamon is safer, a little bit milder, but that's the one you want. And buy organic. Organic is a good idea with all spices. And cinnamon, store it in the dark, airtight container. Keep it really dry. It'll last you a year. But you're going to find my recipe so great, you may have to go buy some more cinnamon because it's great. But if you treat it right, it'll last a long time.
Oh yes, I love to find new ways of adding cinnamon to my diet, and it really enhances the flavor of so many different foods. Okay, so now everybody wants to know, how do I boost my metabolism? So you have this section in the book about metabolic boosting foods and how they increase the calorie burning and maybe the sustained weight loss too. So tell us about that.
Yeah, your metabolism just means how fast you burn calories. We measure it here in our laboratory. A person comes in, you sit in the chair, and I put on, I'll give you a mask. You're going to feel like an astronaut. It's a mask that goes over your nose and mouth. And what I'm actually doing is, it's a technique called indirect calorimetry. We're measuring how much oxygen you're taking in and how much carbon dioxide you're breathing out. And with some pretty simple arithmetic, it shows us how many calories you're burning minute by minute. So there are ways of increasing your calorie burn. And when you increase your calorie burn, that's your body kind of going to the gym while you're sitting home reading a book. I mean, your body is actually just burning calories for you. And this will, if you eat a calorie burning food, the calorie burning effect can last for an hour for some foods, 3 or 4 hours for others. And let me give you kind of some down and dirty examples. One kind of silly example, except that it actually does work, is, let's say you were at a Mexican restaurant and you get the bean dish or whatever it is, and they put just a few too many jalapenos on top. And you suddenly discover, oh my goodness sakes, I'm breaking out into a sweat. The jalapenos contain capsaicins or capsaicinoids. These are that's the hot in a hot pepper, and it'll burn your tongue, and it actually does burn off calories. And researchers have gone to the extent of measuring people's body temperature when they eat these foods, and it goes up because they're triggering thermogenesis. All that means is you're giving off calories. Now, don't take this too far. There are many things other than hot peppers that you can use. I mentioned cinnamon a minute ago. Cinnamon attaches to a receptor in your digestive tract. when it does, it triggers the release of adrenaline that speeds up your metabolism too. In research studies, people use about a teaspoon per day. That's a lot. You don't have to use that much, but it's certainly within the realm of what people can do. But a little bit of cinnamon toast, cinnamon on your oatmeal works great. Over the long run, though, to really boost your metabolism, let me encourage you to take something out of your diet, and that's oily foods. The fatty foods and the oily foods are good to get rid of. Here's why. Let's say I'm 12 years old. My metabolism is supercharged. I'm burning calories all the time. I'm really active, and I'm not gaining weight. But now I'm 20. Now I'm 30. I'm 35. I'm 40. I'm 45. Wait a minute. It seems like I'm starting to gain weight. My metabolism is slowing down. I can measure it. And your metabolism is slowing down. Why is that? Am I getting older? It's not that. Your metabolism should stay high up through your 60s and beyond. What is happening is you've been eating cheese, meat, oily things, fried stuff, and the particles of fat from these foods, the particles of fat from the foods you ate, has started to get into your muscle cells. Let me be clear. Fatty particles from cheese and meat and the fryer grease, the fat particles don't just store on your belly fat or on your thighs. They get into your muscles. And here's why that matters. Where are the burners in your body? Your muscles, you've heard this, muscle mass. That's your calorie burner. That's what maintains your metabolism. Well, if each individual muscle cell gets filled with fat, then the glucose, that's its normal fuel, can't get in it anymore. It can't burn calories effectively. Your metabolism slows down. If we even measure your mitochondrial action, those are the little organelles inside the cells, their activity diminishes, and it diminishes rapidly when these fatty foods get in. What's the answer? The answer is to get the fat out of your cells. To do that, take the fat out of your diet. And Amy, you've been talking about a plant-based diet. So if there's no animal products in your diet, there's no animal fat. And if we keep vegetable oils low, the fat in your cells will start to dissipate. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how slow your metabolism is. That fat will start to dissipate. Your metabolism will start to speed up. And you can discover this. And in research studies, we measure it.
Well, I can attest to that it definitely helped me and my husband. And we've been doing this since 2012, and we have maintained our weight loss, and we're not feeling that we're denying ourselves of anything delicious foods, and we're not hungry, we're not weighing or measuring. And we have already included some of these power foods, not knowing that they were power foods, but we're going to surely incorporate some more of them. So when you were talking about this fat in the cells, of course, it made me think about your book about diabetes. Can you talk a little bit more about how diabetes plays into this?
Yeah, it's the flip side of the very same coin. Let's say I'm eating fatty foods and the fat particles get into my muscle cells, as I was describing, and then the cell can't take in glucose anymore, and so it can't metabolize it, and your metabolism is slow and you're gaining weight. That insulin resistance, that's what the condition really is when the cells fill up with fat. That is the first step toward developing type 2 diabetes. So when people come into our clinic and they've got type 2 diabetes, let's say they've had it 4 or 5 years, they've had high blood sugars, and all they knew to do was not eat sugar or don't eat bread because that'll digest to release sugar. What we focus on is getting the fat out of their cells, because when we can do that, the muscle cells will take the sugar out of the blood, they'll metabolize it and burn it, so their blood sugar comes down, their need for medication comes down, they may even get rid of diabetes depending on the individual, and their energy goes up. So we put all this together, and diabetes can improve dramatically, sometimes even go away.
Right. And I know I've known personally people who have had diabetes, and losing weight had been such a problem for them because their glucose was all over the board, and they would often feel shaky and feel hungry and in between meals. And so they really need something that's going to be a slow burn for them to last them in between meals so that they're not constantly eating. And oftentimes they would have people recommend, and even some people that don't have diabetes, when they were trying to lose weight, they'd have physicians and other people recommend that they eat many small meals. How does that play into the Power Foods diet?
Well, our view on this has changed. Initially, people thought if I ate just really small meals, I wouldn't get a big insulin response, and maybe over the long run I'd do better. But as we've tested this diet over probably 15 years or so, the frequent small meals approach doesn't work for everybody, and we're not using that approach anymore. Now, some of us will use the opposite approach: a few big meals, like one meal in the morning, another meal mid-afternoon, and that's it. And some people do really well with that, but others say, look, forget it. I'm just going to eat when I'm hungry, and I'm going to stop eating when I'm full, and I'm going to leave it at that. Or I'm going to have 3 meals a day, and it still works fine. I think probably the most important thing is the type of food you're eating, not so much the frequency.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that's just over and over again. It is definitely the type of foods that you eat. So now sometimes there's confusion because you talked about fruit. And what about bananas?
I think bananas are A-okay. A banana, if you could compare the nutrition of a banana next to a candy bar at the 7-Eleven, if you just went out for your good long walk or jog and you're looking for something to power up on, the banana is a great choice. It's got healthy, complex carbohydrates, a lot of healthy potassium. It has essentially none of that bad fat, the saturated fat that's in the candy bar. So it's a great choice. Now, people in the past said, wait, it's got carbs in it. It's got healthy, complex carbohydrate that will build up the glycogen in your muscles so that you can run farther tomorrow.
Yes, they're a wonderful portable food that you can
Yep.
take on the go. If you're running out the door, you can just grab a banana and then not have to worry about driving through something that you shouldn't be. So Steve Albee had a question. He wanted to know about artificial sugars or sweeteners and weight loss. Can you talk about that?
Sure. There are many artificial sweeteners on the market nowadays, and in theory, they should be fine because they really don't have much in the way of calories. Some of them have some calories, some have none at all. And so in theory, they should be fine. However, when we track people over the long run who are using them, we don't really see a lot of weight loss, and we don't see that their diabetes improves a whole heck of a lot. And so that's raised the question of why is that? Why are we not seeing a huge benefit? I don't know the answer for sure, but I'll tell you what I suspect based on our observations so far. What we think is happening is that when people consume an artificial sweetener, in some cases they're pretty potent, and they maintain the brain's desire for sugary foods. And so we want them, and we want all the things that go along with them. Plus, they give us a sort of a false sense of forgiveness. So if I'm having the non-caloric soda, I can have the cheeseburger now because I saved all these calories on my soda. And it ends up really not working very well. So I don't say no to artificial sweeteners if a person wants to have that. But I can't say that we've really found them to be particularly helpful.
Yes. And some people react to some of the chemicals that are in some of these foods as well with headaches, and they may not put the two together. So I think that trying to stay away from the processed foods as much as possible is probably a good thing to do. But everybody has to lean into it in different ways and do what works for them. And now people are so worried about potatoes. And I've heard you talk about sweet potatoes, and there's different kinds of potatoes. There's sweet potatoes and there's white potatoes. So can you talk to us about how they affect weight loss and health?
The potato has received a long overdue not guilty verdict. People thought potatoes are going to make me gain weight. Well, what do you do to the potato? You put that potato in the oven, and when it's nice and hot, we take it out, we put it on a plate, and then the assault begins. On goes the butter, the sour cream, the cheese doodles, the bacon bits, and we're going to gain weight. We say, oh, that potato, it's so fattening. Wait a minute. That potato is modest in calories. And by the way, the potato, if you compare it to an egg, people say, well, an egg's got a lot of protein. Did you know that compared to a large egg, a large potato has more protein? Let me be clear about that. We think of potatoes as being all starch. Well, they do have starch in them, and it's a healthy, complex carbohydrates, but they're loaded with protein too, more than an egg. So the potato is fine. It gets exonerated. Potatoes are great. Don't ruin it with bad toppings. Don't throw it into fryer grease, because if it comes out as French fries, you're going to be absorbing all the calories in the fryer grease. Same with potato chips. The baked versions, better than the fried versions. But the natural potato, perfectly okay. And for my money, I'd say, think about the sweet potato. In Okinawa, at the bottom of Japan, where you have more centenarians than any place else on earth, I mean people living to be 100, what is their main staple food? Fish? Nope. Rice? Close, but no cigar. It's the sweet potato. They have special varieties of sweet potatoes. They eat huge amounts of them. And Dan Buettner, who's a great genius with the Blue Zones, identified the diets around the world where people lived a long time. And what they had in common was these plant-based staples that they ate all the time. And in Okinawa, it's the sweet potato.
Yes, and that when you think about how hard it would be to catch a fish, or if you've ever gardened, when you want to get a potato, you get lots of them. If you ever dug up a garden of potatoes, you would just always have potatoes. They would never go away. You'd never be able to dig them all up. So there, of course, that would be a bigger staple of a diet. So now there are so many people watching today that probably are on some kind of prescription medication, cholesterol lowering drugs, insulin. So how does that tie into the weight gain or weight loss and the metabolism?
Let me preface this response by saying, work with your doctor, follow your doctor's advice, and if you're on medications, do not throw them in the trash. Talk with your doctor about them. However, what we've been looking at is that certain medications will affect our weight, and people have talked about this with a lot of drugs like antidepressants and many others. However, the big surprises might be with diabetes. When people have diabetes and they need insulin injections, that often causes weight gain. So do take your insulin if that's been prescribed for you. However, let's go on a healthy, low-fat, plant-based diet to see if we can improve. And what we see in the vast majority of cases is people can reduce their insulin doses. Sometimes they get off it completely. Sometimes the disease goes away. And that makes the weight loss so much easier. Again, work with your doctor, because your doctor's got to work with you to figure out how quickly to reduce the doses, if and when that occurs. The real surprise in the past year or two has been with statins, the statin cholesterol lowering drugs like Lipitor and many others, Mevacor. They're great in the sense that they do lower cholesterol, but they do something else that's not so good. They seem to cause weight gain. And the reason is that normally your fat cells make a substance called leptin that turns down your appetite. It's one of the appetite-containing foods, or appetite-containing switches in the body. But when a person is on a statin, their ability to make leptin is diminished. And in randomized clinical trials, when we put people on a statin, what we see is a little bit of weight gain. But let me emphasize again, don't stop these drugs on your own. Talk with your doctor about them. And the other thing I have to say is the vast majority of people on statins may well not need them if they're taking the cholesterol out of their diet and the saturated fat, even more importantly, out of their diet as well. And that means the animal products, dairy, meat, eggs. Those are the real sources of saturated fat and cholesterol.
Yes, and I guess we should tell our Green Warriors that are listening and watching that this Power Foods diet is really powerful, and that if you are on any medication for diabetes, blood pressure, or cholesterol, and probably others, you might want to talk more about it, but you could potentially be over medicated, as this is so effective, and that you would really need to work with your doctor.
We see it in two particular scenarios. One is diabetes, the other is hypertension. If a person has diabetes, and let's say they're taking insulin or a sulfonylurea type drug, and they're starting this diet, and their body is getting insulin sensitive, they're getting healthier, but they're still using the same medicines that was prescribed, the medicines that were prescribed when they weren't so healthy. That combination of a powerful diet and powerful drugs can reduce your blood sugar too much. You'll get shaky, you'll get sweaty, you'll feel anxious. That's hypoglycemia. And that can be an emergency. You need to, at that point, you need to eat sugar to get back to a healthy blood sugar. So that's why I say work with your doctor, let your doctor know that you're about to start the most powerful, healthy diet for tackling diabetes. The same thing is true with hypertension. If you got a high blood pressure and you may be on 2 or 3 medications, maybe even more than that, when people follow this diet, their blood pressure often starts to improve. And if you're on the same medications and a powerful diet, one day you stand up from the table and suddenly you're woozy because the medications are pushing your blood pressure down and the healthy diet is gently bringing your blood pressure down. It's too much. So you're going to be happy because you talk to your doctor and says, it's time to stop this drug or time to stop that drug. This is a very common experience. But as I've said, work with your doctor. Let your doctor know. If you're on medicines, let your doctor know you're going to do this. It's a great diet for everybody. There's no one who shouldn't try it. But what you want to do is make sure your doctor is able to bring you down on your medicines at the right time.
Yes, and I can attest to that for my husband. He came off of the statins and the hypertension medicine, and his doctor had instructed him to get a blood pressure monitor at home and keep a log. And he shared that log with his physician. And slowly over time, with his supervision, doctor's supervision, he was able to completely come off all of his prescription medications. And it's just such a pleasure to know that he is prescription free, and now I can try to inform other people about this lifestyle with the help of people like you to know that this is something that is so health promoting and getting at a healthy weight, and also a bonus of getting off of the prescription medications. It's such a wonderful thing.
His doctor must have been thrilled. And I hope your husband billed the doctor for the education that he gave him a little bit. Because, this is true. Doctors don't really learn a lot about nutrition in medical school. And what we find is that when individuals do this, their doctors are often surprised. And they say, tell me what you've been doing. Tell me which book you've been reading. And they start reading. They do it themselves, and they bring it to other patients. I wish that doctors would learn this a little bit earlier in their careers. But it's a great thing to do. And by the way, it's also wonderful when families do it together.
Yes, yes. And sometimes it takes a little time to get the other members on board, but just
yes, it does. But you'll get them.
Keep going. Don't pressure them, and they'll just watch you, and it'll happen. So we have a question from Austin Paws of Missouri, and saying, after having a vertical sleeve gastrectomy, VSG, I struggle getting the 60 to 80 grams of protein plant-based. Are there any suggestions, since beans are high in carbs? Okay, let's get an education.
Yeah. Okay. When a person has had bariatric surgery, eating does get a little bit trickier. And especially right after the surgery, you're not going to be able to eat a lot of really high fiber foods because they're pretty bulky. And suddenly you don't have the normal digestive tract that you used to have, so you can't handle quite that much bulk. That's when people often in the beginning, they get to know tofu. That's one of the things they eat because it's got a lot of protein in it and it doesn't have a lot of fiber that, say, the beans would have. And you'll discover the foods that work well for you. The good news is that over time, what you'll discover is that your body can adapt pretty well to a plant-based diet, which is really, really, really important because after bariatric surgery, yes, the results are often really quite striking, but the thing you want to guard against is weight regain, and the plant foods are going to help you there.
Right. And if you wanted to reiterate about the carbs, because it seems that Awesome is concerned about the carbs in beans.
Yes, there are carbohydrates in beans, and your body needs some carbohydrate. Your body needs a mixture of healthy complex carbohydrates. That's what gives you the glucose for energy. Proteins, plant proteins are the best. And you need fat, but only a tiny little amount. And something like beans, vegetables provide it for you. Now, the bean group is the fiber champion. So when people are new to beans, you've got to kind of take it a little bit easy. Use small amounts and make sure they are well cooked. No al dente beans. You got to really cook them until they're soft, and have your portions be small. And then as you tolerate it, you can increase.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And Boomer and Beyond Wellness, she's a wonderful fitness trainer that's been on our show for quite a few times. She's coming on again, and she just wanted to let everybody know I've been on this since 1987, and I continue to be inspired by the science. I'm convinced I made the best choice for my health, our beloved non-human animals, and the health of the planet. Yes, she's truly an inspiration. Okay. Oh, Sid Natter wanted to know, what's safe amount of weight weight to lose every week?
Okay, don't try to be the next television commercial where you knock off 20 pounds in a week. Don't do that. We gain weight rather gradually. Your average person in America gains about 1.5 pounds a year, which sounds really small, except that, wait a minute, 10 years, 15 pounds, 20 years, 30 pounds. Okay, this is starting to sound familiar. If you lose 1 pound a week, let it come off. Now, some people lose a little bit faster, some a little bit slower, but let's say you lose 1 pound a week. That's 52 pounds a year. Plenty fast enough. However, now some people lose faster than that. And if you're losing faster than that, as long as you are not doing it by starving yourself, then I'm not too worried about it. I want you to make sure that you're eating a normal amount of food, a variety of plant-based foods, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's great advice. I noticed that when my husband and I were losing our weight in 2012, that sometimes we plateaued. And
Yeah.
so, but it was always a downward trend. And, but we like to call them non-scale victories, because there was sometimes that we just were feeling better, or we were able to do more things that we couldn't do before physically because of the weight loss. So it seems that's a good amount of weight to lose. And yes, I think you're right, that people think that they're supposed to lose a whole lot of weight, and they don't realize that it didn't come on that fast, though it certainly shouldn't be coming off that fast. Okay, let's see what we have. We have another question from Okay, so Jane want to know, can you address the argument that whole food plant-based carbs raise triglycerides, especially if you're insulin resistant? Is there any truth to that common position?
We did a research study a number of years ago in 64 women. They all wanted to lose weight, and we asked them to eat plant foods, any plant foods, just avoid animal products and keep oils really low. Those were the only rules. And so that meant fruits and beans and grains and healthy food, but it also meant Twizzlers and other foods that don't have animal products in them, but there's a lot of sugar. And what we discovered is that triglycerides, which are blood fats, were kind of all over the place. Everybody still lost weight. Don't get me wrong. They lost weight even if they were eating Twizzlers. Yes, they did. Their cholesterols came down too, but their triglycerides, the blood fats, were kind of all over the map. We did another study. We said, okay, low fat, vegan, just like before, but we're going to add rule number 3, which is we're going to not have these overly refined sugary foods. Not a lot of white flour and not a lot of white sugar. And suddenly, triglycerides dropped like a stone. So you put those two together and you do really, really well.
Okay, thank you for that. We have another question. Jenna said, I'm 66 and have stage 3B chronic kidney disease with insulin-dependent diabetes. Is it all right to eat beans? I recently had trouble with too much potassium, wanting to heal both the CKD and diabetes.
Okay, first of all, thank you for asking the question. I'm sorry you've got to deal with kidney disease and diabetes both, but you are not alone. There are many people who have these issues, and they're seeing dietitians and doctors to get good advice. When it comes to diet, virtually every kidney doctor in the world cheers when the patient is eating plant foods and setting aside the animal protein, because the animal protein is rough on the kidney. You have some kidney function left, and you want to save it. You want to preserve it. You want to do that by getting away from animal protein completely. Now, potassium is going to be an issue, and many plants are high in potassium, others are lower. So work with your dietitian to set a menu to make sure that you're picking the most healthful foods. But when you're on this kind of healthful diet, it also helps your diabetes to get under better control, as I described earlier. And the beauty of that is, what's assaulting the kidneys? High blood pressure and diabetes. Those are the two biggest reasons why people run into kidney problems. And so we're going to tackle them all at the same time. Is it okay to eat beans? Yes. Talk to your dietitian, make sure you get a green light, but beans, grains, fruits, vegetables, those are going to be your staples.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sure that was very, very helpful. Well, Dr. Barnard, I just want to thank you for generously sharing your invaluable tips on harnessing the power of plant-based nutrition for effortless weight loss. And your experience has enlightened and inspired us all to embrace a healthier lifestyle. And I wanted to ask the Green Warriors, what is your final take-home message? And you can put that in the comments so that other people who are tuning in later on can see what you gleaned from this. And Dr. Barnard, tell us what your take-home message is for our Green Warriors.
I hope people will have a look at the message in the Power Foods diet. The message is stop blaming yourself for any issues that you had with weight. The problem was the foods. We didn't really make the right choices in foods, but we now know what they are, and you can put the Power Foods to work for you. The other tip is when you learn something, whether you've learned it from Amy or you've learned it from one of my books or whatever, don't keep it to yourself. There's a lot of people who need help, so let's share it. You can share my healthy brownies, my Southwest chili, but you can also share some information that can save somebody's life.
Well, thank you for that. And I wanted to remind everybody that Dr. Barnard has generously given us a book to have in our book giveaway, and it's a copy of his latest book, The Power Foods Diet. And you can just look in the comments and look on begreenwithamy.com and all the social media out there, and I'll be showing you how you can have up to 6 ways to enter to try to win this book. And if not, you can definitely find it on Amazon and lots of other places where you find books. And it is a wonderful book, a wonderful resource, and lots of recipes and all kinds of wonderful resources in there. And I also wanted to thank Jess Task Voice. She did the promo, she did the countdown. She just helps get the word out about this. And she's going to tell us who's coming up next.
Have you ever wondered what would happen if you ate only vegetables for 10 days? Join us as Esther Loveridge shares her incredible journey from a 10-day vegetable challenge to an ambitious 100-day transformation on Daniel's fast. Learn the benefits and tips from Esther Loveridge, who at age 72 lost 130 pounds. Join us on Friday, April 5th, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on Be Green with Amy Live.
And I want to thank you, Green Warrior, for joining us today. Your engagement and your support, they make these discussions meaningful and impactful. And so please stay tuned for more empowering content, and please subscribe to my channel and share my message with others who can benefit. And together as Green Warriors and with Dr. Barnard's help, we can make a meaningful difference in the world. And as a special thank you to all of you, I'm offering you 5 free recipes. And you can go over to my website, which is begreenwithamy.com/join, and I'd be happy to send them to you. And they're all whole food plant-based, and they don't have any added sugar, oil, or salt. So it's a really great resource for you. And now I wanted to invite you, Green Warriors, to take your right hand and grab your left shoulder, and take your left hand and grab your right shoulder. Now squeeze, because that's a hug from me to you. And if you want to join me and Dr. Barnard, you can type this in the comments, and Dr. Barnard's going to help me with my tagline. Are you ready, Dr. Barnard?
You bet.
Okay. Until I see all of you again, remember, be strong, be well, and be green. Thank you so much, Dr. Barnard, and thank you, Green Warriors. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Looking for really tasty recipes that are SOS free? No sugar, oil, or salt. How can it taste good? Well, if you like flavor, then you'll love this Be Green with Amy recipe ebook. Get your copy today. Click on the link in the show notes. Be strong, be well, and be green.